Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again here at SGTV. This is part of our Job Routes For Electricians series. So, as you know, we've been talking to many electricians from various backgrounds, such as commercial, industrial, rail, and today we're going to be talking to a returning guest, Graham Anslow, about agricultural electricians. So for those of you who don't know, Graham was our first guest ever on SGTV, so it's good to have you back, Graham.
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm good, mate, thank you. So, agricultural electrician. So we spoke a little bit about this when you first came on the show, but as I said in the intro to this, we're going more in depth, just so our viewers have a good understanding of various paths they can go down as an electrician. Because I suppose a lot of them will come out of whichever course, however they get qualified, and now they'll maybe stick to domestic as a most common one, or whichever route. But we want to talk about agricultural today. So before we get into that, just give us a bit of a background of how you started out to where you are now.
Yeah, so basically, from the age of 16, I started an apprenticeship. And like I say, luckily, the company was an agricultural business. So, like you say, as well as doing the domestic side, we were out in the commercial environment, well, not commercial, yeah, agricultural and commercial environment with the three-phase and, like I say, being on farms and stuff. So, obviously 4 or 5 year apprenticeship, stayed there for a couple of years. We all got made redundant and then set up on our own, and then been on my own 14 years now, so we're still doing the similar type of work. So
14 years.
Yeah, I know.
Long time, that, isn't it?
I know. Yeah, because I'm 36 this year, so yeah, been in the industry 20 years, which is crazy, really. Like, when time's gone, and obviously I've learned so much in that 20 years, but still feel there's obviously, so much to learn, and obviously, there's a lot of changes in the industry all the time, so you got to try and keep up to date with everything. But
you must be enjoying it though, if you've been doing it for as long as you have.
Yeah, I do, and I think the main thing I like is the variation, and like I say, with the agricultural side of it, you're getting out in the fresh air in the countryside. You're not spending too much time in the towns and the cities, so that's nice, and you're not kind of caged up in somebody's house. You can just kind of be a bit more free, and obviously as well, the work that you're doing is more on show. So if you're putting light fittings up in a barn or sockets, or you've got trade work, you've got armouds, and you can showcase how neat and tidy your work is. So I enjoy that as well.
Do you think people stick with agricultural once they've had a taste of it? Because I know, speaking to some people, they might stick to industrial or commercial forever. But I know a lot of them, they'll do that for so many years, and then they tend, I'm not saying domestic's easier, but I'm just talking from what I've spoken to people, they might find it easy then to wind down into a domestic setting. But how do you find that for agricultural?
Depends what type of agricultural work you do, because in my apprenticeship, we used to, for like the first 18 months of my apprenticeship, we used to work on a chicken farm, wiring them up, and there was about 300,000 to 400,000 birds in each shed, and back then they were, because it was like an egg laying farm, they were producing 1 million eggs a day. So I don't, and this was 20 years ago, but and that was for like all the big supermarkets. So as you can imagine, when I started on my own, I did not give them a business card. If you know what I mean. That wasn't for me. The dust and the ammonia, and it's not a very nice environment to work in.
It's not nice for the chickens, I bet, either.
No, exactly.
I don't know what the rules are now, but I know you see things in the news, don't you, about there should be better.
They've changed a lot, because they used to be in, like say, cages and that, but I know a lot of that's, the welfare's changed now for the better. And then the other ones, like the pig farms again, which they absolutely stink. So that's something I stay away from. So I'm happy to go on to the arable farms with the grain dryers and a few milking parlours with the milking the cows and bits like that. But yeah, what I find is when you get that set clientele, they kind of stick with you and you stick with them long term. Then because they're a business at the end of the day, and they just want somebody reliable to turn up when needed. So
yeah, and I imagine with agricultural businesses as well, I imagine they're busy all the time, every day and night, and they don't want to be shopping around. If they've got someone who they trust, they're at the end of the phone, that they can just call there and then, aren't they?
Yeah, and like I say, I think it is a good sector to get into, because like I say, domestic is good, and I do a lot more domestic than I used to, because of the way things have gone recently. But the agricultural side, you get the maintenance, you get a lot more maintenance. So obviously it's more your bread and butter work and repeat work, instead of, putting somebody's new circuit in for a hot tub or an EV charger, and then you might not hear from them for a couple of years. But obviously the agricultural side, you've got that ongoing maintenance and, weatherproof sockets and bits like that. And they're, quite heavy handed, so they don't last long.
Yeah. Do you need additional qualifications or different qualifications to go into agricultural?
No, you're pretty much covered. But I'd say, obviously, as you go through your apprenticeship, you will pick up, more the three-phase side of things, which you don't really touch much on that in the traditional apprenticeship. You might wire up a motor circuit, and that's kind of it really for that. So you have got to kind of learn as you go, really, off other electricians. So I don't know top-up courses or anything, that's in that. But
so if any of our viewers are early on in their training and they don't know what three-phase is, could you just give us a bit of a rough explanation?
Yeah, so with a single phase, you've got one live supply. With three-phase, you basically got three live supplies, so you've got triple the power, and the idea behind that is you can spread, say, a motor over them three live conductors, which is more efficient and obviously spreads the load of something like that.
And would you need three distribution boards, or can that all go into one?
All go into one, yeah. So your three-phase comes into the main switch at the bottom, and then each circuit then can be split into either three-phase or single-phase, depending on if it's light sockets or a motor or that kind of thing.
So from there on, then, what sort of equipment and installations are you mainly doing? And not necessarily the ones that you're mainly doing, but agricultural as a whole that you're aware of that is involved in?
Yeah, like I say, milking parlours is a big thing, and I know that's more going down the robotic route as they get bigger. So there's kind of the start now of some of these farms have got, say, 1,000 cows, and they've got a system now where the cow's got a tag on, and it'll sense when the cow comes into the milking parlour, and it'll robotically milk the cow as and when needed. And apparently they can get more milk out of that cow than they would kind of putting that stress on getting the cows in at certain times of the day. So, that's kind of beyond what I can do at the minute, but that's the way it's going for the big farms. So like say, milking is big. Then you've got arable side of it, which is like all your different grains, your wheat and bits like that. So you've got, a big grain dryer basically that senses the humidity of the grain, which they've got to keep at a certain level because they don't want to get in too moist, because then it can start going off. And then if it's too dry, it's obviously too light because it's kind of sold on weight as well. So they're kind of the main two, and then everything else is like say more industrial in the sense of like say barn lighting, security, CCTV, sockets, and all that kind of thing, really. So
do you end up also, because most farms I know of, you've got a farmhouse. So yes. You end up not only doing the work on the big stuff, but you're also doing their domestic.
Exactly. Yeah. So you've got the both sides. Then you then slip back into the domestic. But like I say, traditionally they're very large, 3-4 story farmhouses, which are normally quite interesting because they're normally at least 200-300 years old. So they're not
massive thick walls that are difficult to work with.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So
quite challenging.
Yeah, quite challenging, and in the sense that some of the farmers we deal with, again, they're not. They don't want to upgrade, they don't want to spend, so it's kind of make do amend on a lot of things with them.
Yeah. So what would you say your typical day in the life of an agricultural electrician entails from start to finish?
From start to finish, so basically just get up, get up as normal like everybody else to get a breakfast, and then typically depending on if it's a breakdown, you might be there at say 7:30, 8 in the morning, because again the farmers do very long hours, and they can be up from 3:30, 4 in the morning. So if they see you there at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, they're having their breakfast then, so they think you're doing half a day. But so like I say, if it's a call out, you'll be there, and obviously the RCD's gone off for whatever reason, and if it's a milking parlour, there's a lot of water, they're jet washing everything down, so you've got to isolate everything and get to the problem, and that's it. And like I say, if it's an installation, you're kind of left to it really, which is nice. You're not knocking on somebody's front door and waiting to be let in. You just drive into the farm, and you've got nice big open farm buildings that you can work in, and get the van open, spread the tools out, and you kind of get the radio on, and away you go. So kind of please yourself really. So it's quite good.
Do you find it challenging compared to let's say domestic? If you're experiencing domestic as well, do you find it more challenging?
Yeah, because there's a lot more machinery involved. So you've almost got to be an engineer and work out how that machine works before then you can electrically either wire it or fix it. Because if you don't understand how that machine works, then electrically you don't know how to wire it or fix it. So it is a lot more challenging compared to the domestic sector. But once you've got your head around a grain dryer or a milking parlour or a certain motor or a machine, it then becomes quite straightforward. But again, it's experience. It's again, you can't really teach it. It's just a case of getting chucked in the deep end and scratch your head and see what you can do.
Have there been any moments where you've been in the deep end and struggling to find your way out? Yeah,
when I was younger, I used to have loads of issues with a certain grain dryer on a farm, and literally every couple of weeks, throughout the summer, because that's when they need it, I'd constantly be out at this grain dryer trying to fix it and mend it, and it was just a nightmare because it was such an old grain dryer, from like Europe, and you couldn't get the parts, and you'd have to try and improvise and slowly try and fit other components in there that wouldn't shouldn't really fit. But again, it's kind of make do amend. Obviously you've got to make sure it's safe, but you have got to kind of think on your feet, which it can be challenging, but in a good way, if you want that challenge.
I bet it's quite enjoyable and rewarding though. Like you say, if you're working on machines that you can't just get a part off the shelf, you might have to find a part which might be safe to fit. It weren't meant for that, that situation, but seeing it work at the end, I bet that's quite rewarding in that. I've done that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the other thing is, which you've got to try and cope with, is the pressure as well, because it's almost like a factory environment that if that broken down, you potentially got a workforce there that are, over your shoulder thinking, when's it going to be fixed, because they're kind of losing money, mid-production. So it can be quite stressful as well.
It's that farmer's livelihood, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, where domestically it's not as bad, even though the way it's going domestically, you've got to keep the Wi-Fi on, otherwise it's
end of the world then, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the way it's going.
What sort of benefits do you find there is? You said about it's nice working outside, you've got big open environments. What other benefits do you get from working in agriculture?
Just getting them relationships, I think, with them farms, and they could be very family orientated as well. So you do feel like you're part of the family. And I normally, one day a week, I have my dad working with me as like an extra pair of hands. So it's good to have him with me, and they like to see that kind of family connection. And I got married about 4 years ago, and quite a few of the farmers that I work for came, to the night doing that, and that's quite nice that you have got that kind of that relationship built up over them 20 years.
It is good. I mean, I grew up in the country, and you do get that community feel, and everyone wants to know everyone and be friends with everyone, and it comes handy, if you're their electrician at the end of the phone, and you've got other trade people. Everyone, you always know someone who can do something in those kind of communities.
And recently I did a 6-bed new build, which is like the biggest kind of domestic house I've done off plot. I was just quite proud of, and that was through a farmer that they've got the land basically, and they've built this property. And again, they turned to me for recommendations for other trades, like you say. So they went with the plasterer that I use, and they went with the decorator and the kitchen fitter that I use, and they trusted me because I've known them for that length of time, and I just got the pat on the back for me recommending good people. Everybody wins, really.
Exactly. Yeah. What about disadvantages? Any disadvantages you found, or things you dislike about being an agricultural electrician?
The main thing is, the smell and the and the muck and the mud and that kind of thing. It's not the clean. I like, I'm a bit OCD, and I like to be clean and tidy. So it doesn't really mix with being an agricultural electrician sometimes. So it's tough. You've just got to get in there with your wellies and just accept that you're going to get muck on your hands and muck on your boots and ladders and everything, really. So I'd say the downside is just the smells and the muck, really. But
you're not been charged that by any cows yet?
Yeah, I've had a few times. Yeah, I've had some near experiences on top of ladders. Yeah, it's with like sometimes I've had like a barn full of bulls and bits like that. And the young ones are the worst, because they're just very lively.
My missus is terrified of cows, absolutely petrified of them. She keeps reminding me that more people are killed by stampeding cows than eaten by sharks or whatever it is, and I'll walk through fields and she won't come near them with me.
No.
So what's your typical type of customer? Are they only farmers, or are you getting sort of big agricultural companies coming to you as well?
No, mainly farmers. The thing is with me, because I'm only myself, a one-man band, there's only a certain type of farmer that I can work for, in the sense that I haven't got a team of men that can kind of give out of hours calls and be there every day of the week. So it is kind of the smaller family farmers that I deal with, really, because obviously the farmers that are going into it big, they need a big company to be there all the time, which unfortunately I can't do that, in the sense that I still want a life myself. So
You getting any free milk or cheese or beef or anything good like that?
I have had cheese and that. I do work for a local cheese maker, but mainly eggs, really.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that.
Everybody's got their own chicken pen, so even if I haven't asked for them, they normally slip 6 eggs in the front of the van. So
yeah, I'd be happy taking that as payment.
Yeah, but not as good as a case of beer, like.
No, yeah. So, any of your customers watching, he likes beer. Yeah, get that. Give him that.
Exactly.
Do you think I can't even speak to that. Agricultural electricians are in demand?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like you say, the farming industry, as much as it's always under pressure, the thing with them is they always kind of adapt. So if something isn't selling or something isn't working, they'll diversify into something else. So they could end up selling their beef cattle and, like you say, starting a yogurt factory, or there's a massive thing in gin now, isn't there? Gin distilleries and that. And I know a few farmers that have got into that. So, and little craft breweries and bits like that. So it's, I think the work's there, definitely.
I suppose it's when you look at a map of the UK, for example, like Google View, you can see that it's mainly green. So there's a lot of agricultural out there. Although the populations are localized to towns and cities, you've still got mass areas of land which are all farms and those types of places. So I bet the work's there.
And where I am in Shropshire, apparently it's like the biggest landlocked county. So, it's very vast. And like you say, and also I heard a stat a few years ago saying that I think the land that we built on is about 11% of, the total, land. So if you look at it like that, it's not that much, is it really? But I know if you're only used to being in a town or a city and you see all these houses popping up and factories popping up, you think that every square inch is being built on, but it's not. Like you say, it's you only got to drive 10 minutes, haven't you, out of a town and you're in the middle of nowhere. So.
Yeah, you're getting shouted at by some farmer telling him to get off your land, get off his land.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it was for me when I was a kid, anyway.
Get the shotgun out.
You're probably the only agricultural electrician I've spoken to, and as we said, they're probably in demand. So why aren't we getting enough of them? Do you think people just don't know about it?
Yeah, and like I say, the apprenticeship I did, again, was very niche in the sense that, say there's, I don't know, up to 200-300 electrical contractors, say, in a county. There might be, say, 4 or 5 contractors that specialise in agricultural. So, if you're looking at them percentages, it's never going to be that mainstream. And I suppose compared to other sectors, there's probably not as many farms compared to obviously domestic and industrial. So, it is niche in that way.
What do you think could be done about that? Sort of a better message in the training centres, colleges, schools, that kind of thing?
Yeah. It's like I say, unfortunately, from the start, I suppose, it's hard, but there is only like kind of one route, and then I suppose like a tree, it just branches out. But I know I was never told about any of that. I didn't know about, you could be a commercial electrician, or you could, like you say, go and work on oil rigs, or, go in the Navy and be an electrician, or, there's so many different avenues. But traditionally from school, all is about, working in a house, and that's it. So I only really, I was lucky I fell into it because of the company I started working for, happened to do that side of it as well. So,
yeah. What would be your advice to anyone thinking about not only getting into the industry as a whole, but maybe specialising in agricultural?
Just do your research. Obviously, 20 years ago, Google wasn't really a thing. So I can't imagine now, the amount of information that's out there at your fingertips. All you need to do is kind of search, electrician or, electrical careers, and you can imagine the types of things that are going to pop up through Google. And even maybe ring around. I had to ring up over 40 different companies before I had, say, 1 or 2 chances to get an apprenticeship. So I was extremely lucky even to get, a job at that time. And I think in our year, there was only 6 of us in the whole of the area. And I think out of the 6, there was only 3 of us that actually completed the apprenticeship. So wow. I don't know what it's like nowadays. Even then you think that doesn't seem to be enough for the future.
It's funny you say that. I said this on a couple of our other videos. I've spoken to a few people. One, especially at the minute, is still in training. And they're all saying the same thing. They're almost seeing 2 types of student. The ones who are ringing everyone, looking for some kind of apprenticeship or job or training or free work, anything like that, work experience. And the other half who sat there waiting for it to fall into their lap. And I know which one's going to succeed more than the other.
Yeah, and that's it. And if it was me employing somebody, I'd want somebody that was keen, because even, it sounds silly, but even to somebody looking to get into the industry, maybe even going round to, say, the local wholesalers, electrical wholesalers, just put, electrical wholesalers in your area, and then like drop a flyer or a CV, something, and say to the manager, is it all right if I could put my CV on your trade counter? And then if you're an electrician, you see that, you think they've showed some effort, so
put it by the toaster. That's where that you'll get noticed. All the toasters in them wholesalers, that's where you want to be advertising.
Yeah, but like you say, you've got to show willing, and like I say, I know we've touched on this before, but in my apprenticeship, before I could drive, I used to cycle 14 miles a day, summer and winter. So you've got to put the kind of graft in and show your potential bosses that you want to do it. And obviously it is hard when you're in your early teens. You're not really thinking about your future. You're thinking of other things. You're thinking of the weekends and girls and whatever. But it's obviously, if you can just get through that 4 or 5 years, it obviously a world of opportunity.
I was speaking to Neil Bridgman, who is a rail electrician, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And he was saying that when he's hiring, he looks for attitude more than competence. So you can teach competence, but you can't teach attitude. It's a very good bit of advice, for people who want to get into the industry. If you're showing willing, even if you don't quite have the know-how or the qualifications on that route, that attitude is what's going to get you noticed.
Exactly. And my boss, I was one of 3 or 4 that could have got the job, and my grades weren't as good as some of the others. But he was kind of an old-fashioned guy where he looked into my family and that, like you said, the kind of work ethic. And I think, my granddad and great granddad on me one side were miners and that. So again, he said, well, he's obviously got that kind of work in him, and that's what you need. And like you said, you can't teach that enthusiasm, can you? Unfortunately,
no. Exactly.
I think there's enough work out there, definitely. And like I said, the way things are now, it's never been so good. So it's definitely a good time to get into it. So hopefully the bigger companies, there's going to be more jobs available. I just hope that, like you say, instead of necessarily going down the university route, people do pick the trades.
Absolutely, yeah. For any of our viewers who are watching, they can see a little bit into your daily life on social media, can't they? So where could they spot you on there?
Yeah, so like initially, I've been on Twitter now for, say, 3 or 4 years. So if you just search Anslow Electrical, and then recently, the last 18 months, I've tried to give Instagram a go. So again, Anslow Electric. So I try and put bits on there. I try and I showcase a few of your products as and when I'm using them, and obviously like tool manufacturers and bits like that. And yeah, like you say, just a varied mix of bits really, as and when I get the chance. But that's it really. I don't really do much else because it's enough to keep on top of. But yeah, if more follows on Instagram would be nice. But
yeah, there you go. Make sure you go and follow Graham. Worth viewing anyway. So anyway, that concludes our episode on job routes for electricians in the agricultural sector of being an electrician. So Graham, thank you for coming back on the show and sharing your knowledge and expertise with our viewers. It's greatly appreciated.
No problem. Thanks, Ben.
All right then. Hope you've all enjoyed this. Please make sure you like, subscribe and hit the notification button below. See you next time.